So, welcome everyone. Good morning, Birmingham. And like I said, you've probably seen me again, getting used to these environments. But I really wanted to put this webinar together for yourselves, for the area. I mean, I understand there's been a lot happening in the borough of the last, in the last 12 months to 18 months. There's been a lot of change. Obviously, we've been aiming to support through that as well. A lot of payroll transitions, a lot of schools moving over to full checkbook statuses, a lot of schools implementing budgets as well with access and doing things in a different way. A lot of schools going from spreadsheets, a lot of schools changing recruitment and all sorts of things. So we understand the pressures that you're going through, and this is why I sort of delayed the finance until this part of the year, new academic year, as well, gearing up for the new financial year in April. It's giving us that time as well. So I really wanted to time it so you've got some time to um, have that conversation or explore it and look at different sorts of options available. So with that being said, I'm joined by some amazing people. So hopefully you won't hear from me too much, but we're hearing from our way more experienced team than I. Um, and what we'll be covering is we'll start with a panel discussion, so real world insights from Birmingham schools specifically. It's a Birmingham specific webinar. So we want to hear the insights from our Birmingham team and our professionals in the area as well. We'll then go into a demonstration of the actual finance system. So all of the things we find from the panel discussion, we'll then go into showing you what the system looks like and some of the quick value adds as well. Hopefully aim to make your lives as easy as possible and save as much time as well. And then we'll look at next steps and some of the next steps that we can support you in following up on as well. Followed by Q&A. I'm sure there's plenty of questions as well that you might have. So we want to make sure we give you enough time for that too. So without further ado, I shall quickly introduce our guest today. We've got the lovely Clare Skinner. Claire, lovely to see you again. Been doing a lot with you in the area. A real quick introduction for the audience would be really helpful, actually.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Clare Skinner. I'm the CFOO at West Midlands Academy Trust. We're a very newly formed trust of 3 schools in the South Birmingham area, Kings Norton Girls, Hall Green School and Swanshurst. We've got just under 4,000 kids, over 500 members of staff, about a £30 million revenue budget. And we literally opened in January and onboarded with access on day 1 of opening the trust.
Thank you very much, Claire. And I know you transitioned also from a maintained and now into an academy as well. So you've kind of seen the two sides of that, haven't you? So
Yeah.
we're really looking forward to getting further into that in the next couple of minutes. And also we're joined by our lovely very own Maria Sylvia. Maria, a quick background maybe on yourself to let the audience know who you are and what you do really would be good.
Okay, I'm currently finance manager at Moseley School and Sixth Form. I previously worked at Schools Financial Services for 8 years or so as a finance officer, and I've been with the school since September last year. Access was already on board when I started, and to be honest, it was a game changer for me in terms of basically so easily able to access it and get my head around it. We're quite a big school. We've got 1,400 students and 240 staff. So, and our budget is quite high as well. So yeah, it's challenging, but access has helped me make it easier.
Appreciate that, Maria. And look forward to getting further into that and the areas that it has made it for you as well in the next few minutes. And our very own James Kirby, who is now a stable, obviously, in terms of access finance, access budgets. James, a really quick intro for yourself as well would be really helpful, to be fair.
Yeah, morning everybody. Obviously part of the Access Group, and in my current role, I am sort of technical lead with the pre-sales team. What that involves really is integrations is obviously a key word that we're going to sort of fundamentally go in today. I've been with the Access Group for 12 years. I've seen a lot of change in the education sector and obviously systems, changes, etc. It's been, a whirlwind, and obviously, sort of speaking to customers sort of a day-to-day basis really. And in my previous role, for example, I was doing sort of like systems management, allowing sort of systems to integrate. And as part of Hampshire County Council at the time, we were sort of supporting 500 schools, and within that, they were all using budgets and integrating with other systems as well. So that's sort of key on obviously how we utilise, and hopefully we can demonstrate that, as well as obviously talking to our two guests today.
Brilliant. Appreciate that. Appreciate the intro, guys. So, with that being said, if we jump straight in, I think it would be good to understand from Claire, yourself, Claire. If you could tell us more about sort of a little bit about just from the generic sort of point of view, how you found your experience with Access, and maybe your experience with previous systems that you've used as well, and the difference that you've seen, probably obviously on the area of finance, but then also maybe how you've linked it to the budget side of things and the integration between the two as well.
Yeah, so I was running Access in Kings Norton as a standalone trust. We moved from FMS, and at that time was doing budgeting on a spreadsheet. I'm not going to lie, I did love my spreadsheet, and it took me a while to walk away from that, because once you're comfortable with something, it's a friend, isn't it? But moving to Access from FMS for us was, we actually did it in April 2020 when we were all at home in lockdown, if everybody remembers that. So myself and my finance team rolled out the whole of Access in Kings Norton at that point remotely, away from each other, alone. And it worked really, really well. Transition from FMS to Access, which we've replicated as recently with Swanshurst joining the trust. They again were a maintained school, they were FMS. But that transition between those two systems actually was really seamless. It was really, really user-friendly. It made a lot of sense. I'm quite practical. I like easy things. And it just was all common sense, really. So I found it a really, really smooth transition in terms of moving from there. Obviously, it's a big change for the team, for myself. And I think the team felt that change first because of all the transactional stuff. So it was all a little bit different. But we had quite a lot of support from Access to sort of get used to that process, and training to go through that as well. So yeah, it's worked very, very well. It's allowed us to combine things. It has made budgeting a lot better. So I no longer use my spreadsheet. I haven't used it for a while. Thanks very much. And it's a really good way and method of us having consistent reporting across our trust now as well. And therefore being able to make sure everybody's coding things to the right area, that budgets are accurate. So forecasting and management account reporting is accurate and that sort of thing. So we found it a really straightforward and user-friendly system for us.
That's brilliant to hear. And Maria, from your side of things, what sorts of systems have you used in previous roles or previous schools as well?
In my previous role, obviously, I used to look after 5 schools' budgets, which was monitoring, budget setting, strategic planning. I used CMIS and FMS. I preferred FMS more than CMIS because it was very limited on reporting side of things. And a lot of the calculations in terms of funding and KPIs, we had to do that manually. Mm-hmm. Reconciling salaries, that again was manually. So the transition from those systems to Access blew my mind, if I'm honest, because doing salaries, I mean, for 5 schools, I used to work weekends, evenings sometimes to get like budget monitoring reports ready for schools, because we had to do everything back office using Excel. So that is just a massive game changer for me, because it's just there. It does it all for you. And it's just easy to use. It only took me about 3 months to get my head around it, and I'd self-taught myself, because I do have the confidence to go around the system myself. But I just was, amazed by it, and I still am, to be honest. But there's still loads I want to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And like you say, I think, and Claire touched on it as well, it's never easy to implement any change in life, is it? So it's always going through the first stage of kind of learning a system, seeing where the benefits are, and once you actually get to grips with it and get your head around the system, have your training or your onboarding, you kind of see the fruits from that as well. I think, James, from your side of things, with experience of the amount of schools you've onboarded,
yeah, I was
here
going
at
to say,
Access,
I'll pick that up actually. So I was just picking up on a couple of points as we're going through. I think one of the key things is usability. Not everybody's financially minded. You know, there are so many different stakeholders that are in schools, i.e. you've got like a budget manager, for example, or budget holder, should I say. You will also have your finance assistant, you'll have an HR director. All people want data at different points, and staffing feeds down into the main bit, which is your bottom line of your budget, and how you monitor that budget, you know, and getting that information as quickly, as easy as possible as well. Now, what I would also say is no school or no trust is exactly the same as well. So the system needs to be as agile as possible. And hopefully what you can see here is we've got two different types of trust within the sort of with Clare and obviously Maria. One that's had onboarding experience, one that not necessarily has, but they've grasped the system to obviously get that information out as required. And I think, you know, that's one of the key things with Access is it's actually utilising the system to get your information at a click of a button, but also it's a support mechanism, which I think we'll cover a little bit later on, like the onboarding, on how to prepare for that, which I think is key to get the right outcomes to what you require as well. So, you know, I think we're going to cover that a little bit later, Ilias, on there. So I'll hold that for now, just to save you on that.
No, for sure. And I think it's like you said, one of the feedback I get with the amount of schools that I speak with is always the first thing that sticks out is the ease of use, which is sometimes the most difficult thing to kind of make the decision of, do I want to change because I'm so used to this way of doing things. I think Maria's actually used a very good example of inheriting a system, but then Access, the benefit is that because it's so easy to use, you can self-teach an element of it. Obviously, Access are here to support and help you further enable yourself, but I find that quite often it is something quite easy to navigate through. Claire, I think a question I get quite a bit from schools that may be looking to make a change, and the reason for or the driver of that change tends to be, okay, where am I actually going to save time with a new system, or what are the values what's the value that Access is going to add to my day to day? So where would you say that sort of the main value that you see in the system? Is it sort of time? Is it sort of the quality? What would you say that is?
Yeah, there's definitely a time factor there. So like, you know, Maria said as well, that move away from use of spreadsheets is phenomenal. And Maria, I am still getting to grips with payroll reconciliation on Access, but I'm astounded by it as well. It's just brilliant. It's literally one button and it's just fantastic. So there's just an inordinate amount of time to be saved. Just simple things, I guess, that I can run reports and really analyse things really easily. I can drill down into things in Access. So if I'm looking at my trial balance, I can drill down into it and see the transactions, and then I can go away and investigate that further. I love the fact that I can export all my reports to Excel or PDF. So the ones that I tend to share to a wider population, I will share to PDF. And the ones that I need to work on and do some manipulation or analysis with my teams, I will use via an Excel export. I cannot tell you how much I love being able to import a journal from a spreadsheet as well. That's really sad, but it is true. Just being able to prepare, like, you know, as an academy, we have to do accounting on an accruals and prepayments basis. Being able to prepare those journals, walk away from them for a little bit, just to refresh your head, and then come back to them, double check, and then upload them is brilliant. And to be fair, being able to just draft things in Access is great as well. So sometimes you need, Maria, you know, you need a second pair of eyes, don't you? Go number blind in a day. And being able to draft journals and things that you're posting on Access is really helpful, just so that you can get other people to check it if you need to. One thing that has saved me a ridiculous amount of time is in my interim and internal and external audit process as well, because we can attach every single invoice, every single quote, every single piece of paper that you used to have onto Access. I don't have to then scrabble at year end to produce evidence for my auditors. When they send me the checklist through, my response is, uploaded and attached on Access, uploaded and attached on Access, and they have read-only access to Access to be able to get into all of those supporting documents. So I can put all sorts of, I can attach emails or invoices or whatever it might be onto the system, and it's all there. And I don't have to spend days digging around in paperwork. And this is one thing that Swanshurst particularly have found since we got Access at the beginning of the year as a trust. They've gone from having all this paperwork down to practically nothing. We've workflowed everything. So everybody raises requisitions directly on Access, and you talk about varying skill sets. I've got teachers raising requisitions directly on the system, something they wouldn't have done previously. That has saved time for my finance team because they don't have to get a manual requisition, type it out on the system themselves, and then attach everything. It's done and it's dusted. That work flows to the budget holder. They click 2 buttons to check and approve, that requisition, and that order can be placed. It just saves time for everybody. So it creates capacity within the team to be able to look at, attention to detail, to be able to spend more time analysing those management accounts. I could keep waffling on, but management accounts is another thing that has saved huge amounts of time for me. And as a trust, the ability to consolidate management accounts is incredible. I can literally run report once everybody's done their month-end activities, and I get 4 tabs, one for each school, one for the central team, and then the final tab that brings all of those numbers together on a spreadsheet again, so I can present that to my trustees, really narrate those any variations. But all of those things, I think you're getting a flavour, whether you're raising a requisition or running management accounts, everything within Access has saved me time and effort. Summary.
Really, really, really insightful. I think that the audience will take a lot from that, hopefully. And I think, Marie, obviously, you were quite powerful in terms of how you mentioned the change that Access has brought to you. In terms of, you use the word game changing. What sort of areas would you say have been the most valuable for you, where you're seeing that change from, really?
Well, basically, I think budgeting side and strategic planning is the main one, because prior to that, I used to use 3 different spreadsheets in order to get funding from one, KPIs from another, because the systems that I was using didn't do that. Whereas this does it all for you. You incorporate your inflation manually, and it just, by the click of a button, you've got your 3-year strategic and your monetary and your KPIs at the bottom, which is just brilliant because, like I say, it saves so much time. And going from looking after 5 school budgets to 1 school, I shouldn't say it's not a doddle, but it's literally so, like, the stress. I can't express how much stress it's taken off me. It's just amazing. It just does everything for you. And I like the fact as well that on the knowledge base, I've noticed as well that you ask for any recommendations to the system in order to incorporate anything else, which at the same time, once I get like completely confident with the system, I wouldn't mind putting my ideas forward to say, oh, can we have this? Can we have that? But again, salaries, checking salaries, reconciling them, doing them on a spreadsheet manually with regards to, obviously this is a unique, when you've got Birmingham and it hasn't been fantastic, that's put another ball in the court, whereas we had to double check, triple check what we were getting. But obviously you just reconcile them. And obviously, and when I do my strategic planning as well, it's just, I can't say enough about it, because it just, for me, it's made my life easier and able to pick up other work that I can do in a timely manner and meet my deadlines when I need to.
That's really, really, really helpful. And I think you mentioned a few things there as well, and Claire touched on quite a bit. I think, James, it'll be good to tie in the benefits that Maria mentioned, obviously, then moving from spreadsheets, budgeting, and sort of saving an insane amount of times there, and then the integration with finance. What, from your experience, how are schools finding the experience of having a budgets platform, which used to be maybe spreadsheets, FMS or Carrera, and now having budgets that can basically sync the two together and integrate that? What's your kind of...
I think, go back, and there's no, we need to be agile, we need to be, moving different parts around. And I think, Clare and Maria, probably fantastic sort of accolade really to access, and probably summed it up exactly how I would as well. But I think one of the key things is if you look at flow of data, if you've got a spreadsheet that's over there and then you've got to log into another system and you've got another system down there and you need updates going through, that takes time and effort. Just even to log in, double check the information. Human error can occur, so you're double, triple checking it as you're going through. And I think by having like one Access Evo, as we sort of call it, with like co-pilot feeds, etc., enabling you to have that flow of data in there. It's literally, if you take like a starter in HR, that's then coming down into budgets. That's then obviously feeding to finance. So immediately, without me even taking the data out of those systems, it's flowed all the way through to enable you to get an accurate reflection for example, like your payroll reconciliation, which I think Claire or Maria mentioned, I think maybe both of you mentioned. That's just actually a download, a download in, dropped in effectively, and it then auto maps it, and then you can write your notes and look at the month to date, and also the year to date effectively. So it gives you, staffing is your biggest expenditure item. We need to ensure that is tight, because if you don't get that tight and start going overspent on that, even if it's like a 0.5% overspent on staffing, that's got a huge impact as a percentage and a sort of a monetary amount as well. So keeping that tight, keeping that nice and, effectively, that then goes through to the finances, our bottom line. And obviously one of the key factors then is how we then forecast to the year end and what our outturn position is effectively looking like. And that should be taking the profile budget to year end and obviously your actuals that have obviously happened from there. So again, what Claire mentioned is that is just like importing data. The day-to-day processes should be simple as possible, as easy as possible, as well as obviously getting that data out of the back end as well. So all of that is within Access Evo is obviously all integrated to enable and speed up that process and make things efficient for a more strategic level financial position.
Can I just say as well, which I forgot to
mention,
of course, maternity pay. Wow. It does it for you.
It does.
The calculations and checking with HR, but this it does it all for you, and you can set up your own as well, can't you?
Yeah.
So, fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, Mary, on that one, because although we sort of set up like the day-to-day stuff, like your chart of accounts, which obviously we discuss, there is the flexibility as things change that you can change as the journey changes. So things like maternity, if there's a change, shared parental leave, for example, all of that can be built into the software to give you an accurate reflection of what's going on. And even things like apprenticeship levy, you can get that calculated, those different things can obviously all be incorporated in. So, you can make the changes. Although we give you the statutory requirements, CFR for, BFR for trusts and obviously maintained schools for the CFR. What we are also doing is with like report builder, giving you the flexibility to say, actually, create your own report if you want. You may want something completely different. So that was good.
Appreciate that, guys. And just before we do wrap up this segment, I would love to hear a lot of knowledge dropped so far, a lot of insights dropped. Claire, from yourself, maybe just last tips or advice to any of the schools that are thinking about a change. I know a lot of the schools are thinking new financial year and having things set up then. Typically, the area of FMS users or sort of legacy systems is, do we really want that change? What sort of advice or tips would you pass over?
Yeah, look, there is setup with this, isn't there? But what it is, it's a massive opportunity for you to do a lovely, very deep cleansing housekeeping exercise apart from anything else. So all those cost centres that have been hanging around forever and ever and a day, and all these weird things that we've set up and never used for 14 years, it's an excellent opportunity for a cleansing process apart from anything else. It gives you a really good opportunity to really think about what you want your system to do for you, so you build it to what you need. And I was very, James mentioned chart of accounts. For me, it was absolutely vital that we sat in line with DfE's chart of accounts for reporting purposes. I didn't have that before, and this gave me a huge opportunity to do so. So I think that, yes, you've got to plan it, so work backwards from when you want to launch it. Do not feel that you have to launch it at the start of your financial year, I think, is the other thing as well. I'm not sure there's any really good time in the school's year to change a system. So pick one that works for you and work in how that's going to impact it longer term. So, you know, I as an academy, I adopted it in April. When we opened the trust, we opened on the 1st of January. So I've just done an 8-month year, which is the weirdest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I can't even tell you how grateful I'm back to 12 months. But you know, it was just about understanding, but Access helped us to achieve that. We could profile our budgets across 8 months being a full period, which again was like, what? Okay, good. I don't need to divide by 12 and times by 8 all the time. So it did that for us. I think just plan it, take the opportunity as well to do things that you wouldn't necessarily have done. So for example, we workflowed and absolutely used all of Access's workflow from day one. We could have said, oh, we're just going to get the finance team to use it. Everybody carry on doing recs and budget and signing pieces of paper as you normally have done. But we went in full beans and said, no, paperless, let's, you know, get it done. And it's worked. We've reduced costs, therefore, as finance teams in all of our schools because we're not printing anymore. We're not using the amount of reams of paper that we were doing anymore. We're not duplicating effort. So I think just plan it, but grasp all the opportunities you can to hit the ground hard and get it working for you from day one.
Absolutely brilliant advice there from you, Claire. And Maria, just lastly from yourself, any sort of tips, advice for schools that are considering change? Appreciate your insight, would be definitely helpful for some to hear as well.
Yeah. So tips, like I say, for instance, I'll give you an example. When I started at Moseley School, there were a few obstacles, obviously, when you take over someone else a role and whatever, but it didn't take me long to navigate through and deal with those issues. That's what I liked about Access in that sense. If you were to transition to obviously Access, I doubt especially if you're obviously from a CFO point of view, Claire's point of view, it's bigger task because you've got other schools on board. But if it's a single school, I really don't envisage that it will take you that long to transfer. And once you do get like your basics in Access, you're raring to go, really. Yeah. But I was going to say as well, the other thing that I did like about Access budgets is the quick salary calculator.
Yes.
And it was, I mean, doing that, it's the amount of emails, because I'm getting to an age where I forget all the time. But it's basically asking, oh, how do you do that? What formula do you use in order to do the salary for staffing, for teachers? Support staff is different depending on their annual leave, blah, 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 blah. That was just brilliant. So if the head teacher says to me, can you cost me in 2 teachers, 1 support staff, I can use that and give them that information as well. So you can export it into Excel or PDF and they can see how it's working out, and includes all the on costs as well. So that is a good one. It just makes your life easier, and I think you won't regret it once you're in. That's all I can say, really, in terms of that.
Brilliant, lovely to hear from you as well, and appreciate having you on. I think the insights that you've given is really helpful for a lot of our audience today. I think some of the points that you mentioned as well, a lot of it is we're going to delve into the system sort of now and show exactly how we were able to do that. And a lot of it, like you mentioned, is that onboarding process. Okay, we've looked at the value, looked at the benefits. What does that onboarding process look like? Clay, you mentioned the net opportunity to clean up the system and having financial data in the format that you would like it. In the onboarding process, that's exactly what we do. And then Marie, you mentioned obviously in terms of you've obviously self-taught a lot of it. Then we looked at supporting you with further enabling yourself. Obviously, the new schools will have training as part of their setup as well. So definitely a lot of amazing insights there from you both, and I appreciate your time. We will jump into the section of demo now, but again, lovely to have you on, and look forward to seeing you both do amazing things in the coming months and years as well. So speak to you soon, and lovely to have you on.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much. So we will jump into a little bit about Access and jump into the the demo now to show you what that system sort of looks like. And just to give you a bit of an insight, I appreciate a lot of the schools that are on here or trust that maybe on the webinar today are using Access budgets already, or getting used to or starting to use Access budgets as well, and hopefully seeing a lot of the benefits and pretty much what was described there by Maria and Claire in terms of values that you're looking to see or have seen from budgets, and now how can we expand that further, and provide exactly the same, if not more, in our financial system. And the aim of all of our products in the education space is we're all education experts, from myself, James, and our team here, is we share a mission, and our mission is to make the journey of every child in schools as best as possible. And the way we do that is to aim to give you as much time back to focus on the ones that matter most, and that is the pupils, and the children in our schools. And I have 2 kids myself. They study in Birmingham, they go to school in Birmingham, so this is quite a personal project for me as well, to see how I can further help the area and how I can further support, so again, improve and give as much back to the kids where we can. So with that being said, you might know, so this area at the moment, for example, you have budgets with us, but this is just a quick insight into the education suite for Access. So some of you might be using budgets, and today we're discussing finance. We might have someone on the call, and we've got plenty of sort of our people system and payroll that we onboarded in the last 12 months. Lots of schools we took on, supporting with the payroll transitions in Birmingham. And again, you've got the curriculum side of things with GCSE pod, which actually Maria and Moses School are a part of as well. And then parental engagement with Class for Kids and after school clubs. So basically giving you the platforms to manage all different aspects of your schools at the moment, and then centralizing that and integrating all of those systems together to, again, just streamline those processes and help you manage them a lot more smoother. So we welcome any questions on any of that as well. Appreciate there might be some conversation to pick up after this as well, but just thought I'll share this with you before we jump into what's next. James, over to yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So just one final bit, actually, I was going to pick up from when Claire and Maria sort of left us on that conversation is, look, we are here effectively to work in partnership with you. So obviously we know the system really, really well, and obviously how the integrations work. So we will work with you on that journey from go live, and obviously look at the customer pathway going out to obviously making you experts within your school environment integrations, and obviously how you can get the best out of the system. So that is an ongoing thing with obviously webinars that we present with. It's obviously it's all about the go live initially, but actually with education changing all the time, that is something that we obviously evolve with you at the same time. Now, I think what I'm going to do now is I am effectively going to share my screen. So there might be a slight pause on that. So just bear with me, and you should hopefully see my screen. If you could just confirm that, Ilias.
Yep, all good.
Perfect. So we have all been talking about integrations, and obviously within Access we have Evo Suites. So this effectively enables us to have all of our data effectively in one place, and that takes us into a huge advantage of all the different stakeholders that are within the school. So it means effectively, if we have, with regards to our product set and what we require from Access, all of that can be maintained within that Edu suite of products here. So that could be something as simple as like HR. As we mentioned, we've obviously got the budgets. What we're going to cover today will obviously be the finance, but even some of the sort of the learning and stuff like that can all be added as obviously the scope around that as well. Now, in addition to that, by having that data, we need to keep all schools or the trust obviously informed of any changes and things that are going on. Because what we find a lot of time is, email notifications for authorization. That could be a quick ask rather than actually going around and making that sort of a paper-led exercise. So what you see within here effectively is within the feed, you can immediately see all this information with regards to somebody's, I've got, for example, a purchase requisition that requires approval, you can either reject it from this screen, from that feed, but at the same time, you can view it in education finance. So again, that's saving time, and included within that will also be an email notification to obviously identify that as well. Now, as I mentioned in the presentation a few moments ago, it's all about how we, as different stakeholders, i.e. a business manager, an HR director, or a finance assistant, how you can get the best information and actually make your day-to-day processes as quick as possible, and the most efficient way of doing that as well. So what you can see in front of you, for example, is a business manager without me even going into the product. So I can see all of this information coming into one area. It will allow me to see our age credited by supplier. It will also allow you to see what your total staffing costs are based on a different scenario or even a different school based on the information that's been supplied here. Actually, if I was just a budget holder, you can see down the right hand side that will give you obviously that budget holder information within here. And if I was going in to create an invoice, for example, immediately I can just click on that, and that would allow me to effectively create that invoice without me having to go in. It's effectively a shortcut to speed up those quick processes. And that's what we talked about in a previous webinar, where it's all about marginal gains to speed up those processes to enable us to obviously ensure that we can get things done quicker and easier as we go through that as well. So what you'll also find then is, as we mentioned before, it's all about single sign-on. So we're sort of saying at this stage is with regards to budgets. This is where obviously, bringing the actuals into the budgeting and obviously doing that scenario planning and enable that to happen. This is where we can actually enable that data to come in. And all we need to effectively do at that stage is select the month, click on the import actuals from finance, and immediately that has now updated that information to incorporate our actuals against a original budget and a current budget that you're working on. So that will allow us to then look at what our forecast is looking like for year end as well. So that's something that will speed up that process without having spreadsheets outside of the system, etc. On top of that, obviously within budget, this is where obviously you're going to be creating your budget in the year. And obviously you'll be looking at your current budget on a monthly basis, or it may be for maintained schools that you do on a half yearly basis. But what we don't want to be doing here is actually rekeying in that data on the system. So this is now education finance and how we can effectively utilize all that information. So what you'll see here is hopefully that you can see that the usability of this is really, really easy. Now we know, going back to what Maria mentioned about, not necessarily having the onboarding initially, but finding a way around the system very, very easily. If you do get stuck, for example, and I'm looking to do something, I want to import my budget. This is something that I can actually go up to the top here, type in, and that will then configure my menu bar based on the keywords that I've put at the top. So again, alleviating the, when you're new to the system, alleviating all those challenges that may be with part of that onboarding as well. Now, within that, what you'll also see then is we then obviously got the managed budget. Now, what we mentioned is, how can we utilize by creating the budget, but then making sure that it's in our finance system effectively at a click of a button or at that sort of seamless feed on here. So this is where what you will see within this screen is this is where we can literally just click on that update from education budgets. That will then, we can click on the continue button, and that will then import the scenario of our choosing and just drop it in to ensure that the original budget in the first instance is updated, and then we can lock that in the finance system, and it then effectively means that the current budget, when we import it for a second, third or fourth time, that is the only figure that changes, so that you then have a clear audit trail between your original budget and your current budget on the system. So it's all about how we're moving that data from the budgets into the finance and effectively taking the actuals back to budgets to ensure that we've got the most up-to-date information as possible as well. Now, obviously, there's a couple of those integrations, and obviously I'll show you in a few moments how that integrates into the system. I think one of the key things with this really is also off the back of what we've just been talking about is we want you to have the most key information or the most up-to-date information to hand as well. So just a few sort of simple things really that I would say is as soon as you log into the software is I can immediately see how much of the actual spend of the budget, how much the staffing cost against my total cost, how many purchase invoices are effectively overdue, and also included within that are there any sales invoices that are overdue as part of that as well. Now, when we sort of interrogate that or actually look at the bottom information, what you'll also see, for example, is what was the last bank reconciliation that was completed? What is your current sort of ledger balance for that? Again, if we needed to within the finance system for that school or for that trust level as well, what is the supplier turnover for that year to date effectively, and who are we using the most on the system? And then the final bit really is if I then scroll down to the very bottom, effectively, what are our key balances based on what is our current bank balance, what is our petty cash or credit card balance effectively. And I think then one of the key things then are going to be around your creditor control and debtor control to ensure that you've got visibility of exactly what is going on with your school, so that you can obviously report back to your management accounts on a monthly basis. Or if you're a maintained school, you may have to then report back to the local authority to give them all of this key information. So all of this is data rich to enable you to obviously put that information back as well. So also off the back of that then is with regards to the day-to-day transactional stuff, I think Claire and Maria sort of put it really, really well in how they sort of, articulated all that information. You want to be able to find information as quickly as possible. Now, we, whether it be the DfE chart of accounts or your local authority's chart of accounts, we can be as flexible as we need to be with that information. But I think one of the key things within here is when you go to things like your cost centres or even your ledger codes, exactly the same process. What you want to be able to do is find that key information if you're in that screen. So within here, if I was looking at sort of teachers information, you can actually type in keywords at the top. That will filter the list based on that information. And then what you can find is over the right-hand side is you have the ability to drill down on that information, period to date and year to date. And by just clicking on that information, immediately what it's showing you is a list of all of those transactions. And that enables you to then click on that again to then go from effectively the total amount of a cost center all the way down into a transaction. And the key thing with that is we've done that in a couple of clicks to enable us to see what information is available based on that as well. Now, that is something that if I come back out of here as well, that is something that we talked about with regards to the chart of accounts and how easy that feeds in. That's obviously something that will be managed centrally within, obviously, finance. We know that different pockets work in different ways. You will have your cost center management. You will obviously have your ledger code structure that feeds the DfE or the local authority. But actually, there may be instances where you want to create analysis codes for something simple like a maths trip. And that enables you to report on some of the granular details of things that are going on within your school without having to maintain spreadsheets outside. And it just incorporates that all into one ecosystem and into one finance system as well. So that's obviously, I'll come to this at the end of today's session as well when we sort of talk about next steps from that. But I think then when we sort of go down into the sort of day-to-day processes, we want to make that as simple as possible for you and making you get things online and obviously storing things on the system. So one of those key areas is going to be purchase orders. Within the purchase order system, you will see that I've actually set this up in true sort of Blue Peter fashion, but we've got here, for example, is purchase orders. Again, go back to what I mentioned previously. I want to be able to search for data quick, easy, and actually interrogate information on here. So this is where you can actually put things in ascending or descending order. You can, if you wanted to, even type in things like part received. So that enables you to obviously find out all your part received orders in one place and viewing things on screen. But what you're sort of showing here is it's very easy to look at that data on the system. Now, looking at this, if I just sort of take that info on here, I've just created a purchase order. So if you wanted to, you can put these things in draft as required. And this is where you can actually create these purchase orders on the system. Things like best value. Why have you got best value? Kind of obviously education, public money is quite crucial how we set that up. But again, once we've done that, this is where we can actually bring that information into the system. And if we needed to, it's easy to obviously add our attachments, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner as well. If we needed to, we can also notify the supplier. Please deliver after 3 o'clock. So again, that's notifying that. So when we email to the supplier the purchase order, that's something that's incorporated into the software as well. So it's making these things online and as easy as possible at that stage. And then the key thing really is once we clicked on that submit button, what you will then see is it's then obviously brought that purchase order into the system. And by bringing that purchase order into the system, what you'll then see effectively is any attachments that are attached against them, everything can be viewed on screen. And by clicking on here, that enables you to either download any attachments or view them on screen to ensure that from an audit point of view, or for your own peace of mind, really, things are stored on here against the relevant purchase order or purchase requisition to enable all of that information to occur at that stage. So that's obviously where you've got that clear audit trail. And obviously, I've just gone directly to the purchase order. If you wanted to raise these via a purchase requisition, you can see here we can have multiple requisitions linked into a purchase order to get budget holders involved in that process if required. And that obviously, as you can see here, gives you that clear audit trail on the system as well. Now, to the day-to-day stuff, you will obviously see your invoices. And I think one of the key things I would say at this stage is what you will find is when you're putting things in like purchase orders going into a purchase invoice, we're trying to make the process as easy as possible to ensure that you're not rekeying things in. All your coding is obviously manageable and obviously links directly to a ledger code. So there are no miscodings as we go through. But it's at this stage, once we select the supplier, put in our invoice number, at the bottom of that screen, we can then effectively select that purchase order number to bring all of that information in here as well. Now, once the invoice has effectively been created, what you will also see is you then have an audit trail over the right-hand side. So again, go back to what we mentioned previously, is you can see obviously the status of those purchase invoices. In addition to that is you can also see the ones that have been paid in aligned with that as well. So if I just go over to the right hand side, what you'll also see within here is if we need to say, well, has that invoice been paid? Yes, it has. But actually, when did it get paid and what is the BACS reference number for it? There's an icon that will actually back that up. Click on that information and immediately you can identify the BACS run and the date that that was being paid. So it gives you reassurance to let the supplier know if they phone you that this is the information that you found. And I think one of the key things around that as well is you can also search to make things as easy as possible. You can also search by invoice numbers or even supplier names to aid that quickness of obviously getting that data as well. So that's obviously a few things around that integration on here as well. I think obviously the next stage would be around obviously the payments. Obviously that is where we can obviously pick up with the BACS runs. They can obviously be selected on the system as we're going through. So that is something that can be integrated and obviously ensure that we are going on to that information and getting that as quickly as possible. Now, the next stage beyond that then is obviously how we can do things like your payroll journals, for example. You know, sometimes what you find with payroll journals, etc., is these things can take time and take a lot of effort on the system. So going back to what we said previously is if you're in a sort of journal situation, what we are able to do is click on the add journal. When we click on the add journal, and it kind of goes back to what Claire or Maria mentioned a few moments ago, is when we get into here is what we don't want you to be doing is actually rekeying it in or actually creating things from scratch. So a couple of things that we've done to ensure that you get the best out of the system or to speed up your processes again, you will see that within the journal type is you do have the ability to import your journals. And that, as I mentioned, could be things like your accruals, prepayments, whether it be at year end or a monthly basis. It can also be on your monthly journals. And that's something that will enable you to obviously speed up that process as well. Excuse me, just take it. So yeah, off the back of that then is obviously once we've put all the information in there is, when you're doing your day-to-day sort of functionality and maintaining the chart of accounts, maintaining your supplier list, also maintaining obviously and entering in your day-to-day transactions, it's all about that support mechanism as well before I sort of go into the report outcomes. One of the key things we find is you will probably want an answer. If you get an issue, how do I, I've got an error message on my screen. What's going on? How can I sort of utilize and get the key support up-to-date information? What you will see as part of that Access Evo experience is in the bottom right hand corner is you do also have is what we have is the digital assistant, both in with regards to budgets, finance, and obviously HR as well. This is where you can actually ask an AI agent to help you. You can actually go to the support portal. You can also go to the video hub to help you. But one of the key things is it enables you to find the key information now to make sure that you're not on hold to effectively put in a crucial invoice, put in a crucial purchase order to enable that to happen as well. And any updates that we have with regards to the system or any updates that are educational specific, they will also enable them to come out as well with regards to any messages that are on that screen as well. So you can see here with any updates that we put on the system, these are things that we can put on here with regards to like reporting tools to help you. Any financial year support, all of that is incorporated into our digital assistant, which is on the right hand side as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, it is all about that customer journey. It is obviously about looking at your processes, which we'll cover in a few moments. I think one of the next bits then around that then is how do we get the data? How easy it is to get that data out of the system as well. And there's a suite of reports that you will obviously be incorporated. For those of you that are maintained schools, they will obviously feed into your local authority. For those of you that are obviously trusts, they could be run at school level and also at the trust level. So we give you that flexibility of all those different types of reports on here as well. But to give you sort of an idea of what you can expect, you will have things like your management report and cash flow report. Those are all built in. To give you a flavour of what they look like, that is something that will be on the screen, as you can see here. These can be flexible, how they look actually with the groups down the left-hand side. So, what we're trying to find really is by utilising finance and budgets and also HR, bringing that data in, where are we looking at, how are we performing against our budget for the current period? So you've got your current period, you've got your actuals, you've got the variance. Okay, well, based on the current period, how are we looking like year to date based on the period that's been selected as well? Then when we look at it, making sure that we have the most, our original budget and our current budget, how is that data there to enable us to interrogate against what was our original budget against the current and any variances against that? And the final piece of that really then is at a click of a button, what you'll then also see is based on our current budget, what are the totals to date with our actuals and commitments? What is our likely projected budget outturn looking like? And that will identify how you're effectively going to be performing against your current budget as well. Now, all of these reports can be done at a very high level. If you're reporting to your trustees or your governors, high level, keep it high. However, if you want to interrogate things by ledger code level, then you can actually open up these reports to enable you to obviously bring that information down to the more granular level if there are those challenges, as we know with certain things like staffing cost, etc., where we can bring that information as well. Now, it's not always effectively about ledger code groupings and stuff like that. There may be instances where you want to, for example, bring your budget holders into the system. So that is where budget holders can actually run their own report if they wanted to. They don't have to wait for you to send a report to them. You can set them up on the system. You can give them access to their cost center so they can effectively self-serve and obviously see all of that information at the fingertips as they go through, and obviously allows them to authorize as well. So within here, they can obviously run their own report. Within that information, once they've run that report, they can obviously see exactly how they're performing against their cost centre. That will give them a summary of all the information that's on there. And below that, based on your actuals and your commitments, it then also gives you all the transactions to date that relate to the actuals. And then if I go further down, it also, for that budget holders, identifies all the outstanding purchase orders at a click of a button as well. Now, as mentioned, all of these reports can be exported out to PDF, can be exported out to Excel, but effectively that enables users to obviously push that information out and can self-serve, so they get the most up-to-date information as well. Now, for you as business managers, you just may want a very, very quick update of all of your cost centers. So again, that is something that you can interrogate. I'm going to make this as simple as possible. However, you can make it as granular as you need as well. But within this screen, you will effectively see that you can go from and to period, click on that submit button, and immediately what that will produce for you is a report of all of your cost centers. That will identify the percentage of budget spent over on the right hand side. You can also see things like different groupings of cost center based on that information as well. And that really just gives you that overarching view of exactly what is going on within your school based on the cost center structure that you've set, maybe with our onboarding team as well. So it's simplifying all of those processes and bringing those into the screen as well. So again, there's a load of different settings that you can play for, but it's bringing budget, it's bringing your actuals into effectively one ecosystem for you as well. Okay, and the final bit that I mentioned, I'll pass back to Ilyas at that stage, is, as I mentioned on the sort of discussion that we had before, is you don't have to necessarily use our templates or our report templates. We also give schools the ability to create their own reports. So if there is a quarterly return to the local authority, or you want to create your own extended trial balance, for example, all of that can be incorporated where you can share it with the wider team, but create your own reports and effectively manipulate the data by inputting filters on there as well. Okay, so I think it gives you a wide umbrella of things that enables you to do to make some of those processes a lot quicker going forward as well. Okay, so I'm going to pass back to Ilyas. I think I've stopped sharing my screen, Ilyas, at that stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So thank you, James. Appreciate that. And I think you definitely brought to life a lot of the values and a lot of the sorts of benefits that Claire and Maria were touching on earlier. I think it was just good for the audience to see what that would look like in terms of simplifying those processes, especially those report area too as well. So thank you for that. And hopefully that was helpful to see what the system does look like and how it can then look like for you in schools moving forward. And there's different options that we now basically provide to enable you to start adding those integrations and seeing those bundles and the suites of access sort of products start to centralize a lot of your functions, saving you hours and hours of time, as we talked about earlier. And again, in terms of the accuracy, reducing the amount of admin load as well, and paper that might be used at the moment, and many other areas as well. So there's different ways that we have incentivized schools to simplify that decision process and implementing new sorts of additions from Access's point of view into your schools as well. So you've obviously looking at budgets, we've got financial focus, which starts to incorporate budgets and finance and allows you to have the integrations between the two, with additions of staff benefits as well, policies and procedures, again giving you a lot more for the investment that you make. And then we have thriving people, which is then looking at your sort of your people portal and your managed payroll, which again is a live sync there as well. So that's the bundle that we have with that, and that has different again additions onto that with LMS, employee recognition, staff benefits, etc. as well. Again, giving you a lot more for what you would usually have as part of that. And again, all of these products live in Access Evo. So where you saw James earlier start the demo, this is where all Access products live and will live. And where you see the AI enablement there as well, the AI is built for your system. So if you have budgets, it'll be for budgets. If you have budgets and finance, if you have budgets, finance, HR, and payroll, you're able to see that as well. So you're able to see a lot more value from your systems as well. And then you have the Freedom Bundle, which is basically giving you all of your core functions, allowing them to live within Access. Again, the integrations between all of them as well. And I think James touched on the integration from people into budgets, into finance, and your people into payroll as well, with the journal going into finance. So giving you that full integration as well, and the people link into the MIS systems as well. So definitely some amazing options available to you. So we can definitely pick up those conversations after. And happy to support with those. And again, looking at different additions, if there are other modules, for example, screening and recruitment, and I understand a lot of those, the LAE made those changes, but it's often a case of future proofing as well. So if it's a case where immediate discussion is, for example, finance, or it was payroll, if it was HR like it was last year, it's future proofing. So if we're using a platform, what does that look for us in a year or 2 years? Are we able to add further products? Are we able to further integrate? Are we able to then start to bring in a lot of our processes in one place that then allows all of our staff members or responsible members to see all information, data, and input in one central location, which tends to be, from my understanding and experience, the strategy for most schools. So definitely some options for us to explore there. But this is your time. I appreciate we've run over slightly on the call today, but we wanted to make sure that you're given as much to take away from this call as possible. I understand there's a lot to take in as well. We wanted to make that again as insightful as possible for you. So this is your time. We'll spend a little bit of time on your Q&A, and then we can look at maybe some follow-ups and any actions from there as well, or booking some time in with the account managers in the region. And if you'd like to explore any conversations further or ask any questions, Claire has helpfully nominated or volunteered, should I say, herself to offer any support to schools that might have questions on exploring finance. So I'll probably share her email address after as well, or some details as well, if you'd like to contact her for any reference points or any sort of advice and tips as well. But James, a quick question we have is probably a straightforward one for yourself. Is Access Education Finance cloud-based or locally hosted?
So yeah, very much cloud-based. I think obviously that then brings in the benefits, as I mentioned, with regards to educational statutory requirements. So with an example is, if there's a new CFR code, or if there's a new BFR template, for example, these are updates that we can push out either in working hours as a live fix to update it. Or things can be done overnight if required, depending on the how big a job that requires. So yeah, that's the benefit. So the great news is, for all of you that are on the call, if you were to log on to the system, you would all have the same version of Access, because it is hosted on our UK server to enable you to obviously access that as required. So yeah, very much cloud-based. And obviously, without sort of saying that gives you the added advantage of not logging in via a link effectively. If you need to work offline or online, should I say, sorry, if you need to work online, work from home, or in a different school, if you're part of a trust, all of that data is easy accessible, as long as you've got your basic. The key thing is you've got your login details, Wi-Fi enabled, and actually one of the key things I would say is, for things like authorization, you can also use your mobile to enable some of those transactions as well. So everything's on the move with regards to tech as well.
Thank you very much. Another question is, can we track funding streams separately?
Yeah, so I think that would be as part of the when we go into the setting up. As I mentioned on the demonstration, we will set your chart of accounts up and ensure that. So funding streams, one of the areas in the chart of accounts is fund codes or funding. So that could all be built in, easily reportable on. We also have analysis codes in addition to that. So if it's a typical area of funding, we would work to enable that setup to be incorporated, so it's easy to budget to, and also easy for you to obviously run actuals against as well. So yeah.
And one on workflow, is there a workflow for budget approvals or purchase requests?
Yeah, so I think Clare and Maria's kind of mentioned it. So I think one of the key things with those questions is all the workflows can be built into the software. So if you think about a requisitioner, a budget holder, that can go to the relevant people. Individuals can be set against their own cost center so that they cannot see anybody else's cost center. So if you're part of maths, you don't want to see English, etc. And also as part of the authorization process, you are able to have values. So if you are over, I don't know, say £500, it goes to another authorizer. And also, all of that is built in to enable that. You can also have email notifications, but also with an Access Evo, as I showed you at the beginning, you can also have all those feeds built into the software as well. So, hopefully, when it comes to actually going live, and I think that's the benefit of utilizing all the features, certainly from a workflow point of view, is there's no need to then walk around with a piece of paper to get a signature. All of these things should be managed and done online to save time from that point of view as well.
And just a couple more, we'll go on these ones. I think one for onboarding is one I may be able to support with as well. But just one for you, Jane, maybe to start with, is how long does it take to implement the system?
That varies. Now, obviously, one of the key things, and again, in the discussion, we mentioned about go live dates. We can go for any go live date that you want based on, when if you sign, etc. on here. If you work backwards from that, I always say preparation is key to planning. So, what we don't want to do is rush these things. So, if we can get you a consultant assigned to you to do the onboarding, that initially would then be a welcome call with yourself or your team. We can then understand what your requirements are so that we can then build the software and customize the software to exactly what your requirements are. So effectively DfE, local authority, their requirements, as well as obviously your own individual school requirements. And then once we've built the system, it's then about onboarding. Now, I always say with onboarding, everyone's got the fear factor. Everyone says it's daunting, but just remember, we've got the experience of obviously onboarding. We've probably done hundreds of these with regards to getting people up and ready for utilising the system. We don't train for days on end. We will train as and when you need the software so you can utilise it immediately. And that training is video content as well as customer-led, consultant-led. So it does mean effectively you can then consume that information, speak to a consultant to then obviously go through that, and at the same time you will only get a couple of hours, and it's modular based on there. So for example, like month year end, that would be done probably a month after you go live, so that we can obviously ensure that you're utilizing that info as soon as possible on that process. So we'll support you through that whole process. It's we're working partnership with any schools, trusts on that as well.
Yeah, no, and just to quickly add to that as well, having onboarded a number of schools as well, is like you say, it is modular based, so its training is split out into those areas, meaning that you don't have to spend full days just on training, and we really make sure that when you do have that go live date, you're very much geared up for success, and you're pretty much well equipped to start from day one, fully enabled on the system as well. So very good question, that one. We hear quite often as well. And I think the other question was on assigning, can we assign budget responsibility to department heads or budget holders? I think we might have touched as well.
Sorry, that cut out then.
That's right. I think the other question was, can we assign budget responsibility to department heads or budget holders?
Yeah, so, and that can be school specific as well, actually. So you may have like an executive head. You may also have a executive business manager or a CFO, for example. So yeah, the system's as flexible as it needs to be. If you're an individual, let's take a faculty, for example, an individual can be attached to a budget or multiple budgets. So if they're responsible for 2, 3, i.e. a faculty effectively, that could also be integrated into the build of the system as well. And that then allows them to raise their own requisitions and also allows them to do their own budget holder reports as well.
Brilliant. And we've got time for just one more, and I can probably support on this as well, is what support is available once we are live with Access Finance. I can support on that. Probably one, James, to be fair, is so you have different modes of communication and support available to you. You have a CSM, which is a customer support team as well on hand, but you also have the ability to raise a case online. You have the ability to have, well, AI support, like I think James touched on earlier, if you would like to have some quick support there as well, and a chatbot that's available to you as well, a support chatbot. You also have your dedicated account managers, whether it's myself or Birmingham as well, or BGL for some of the schools as well. So you have a dedicated account manager, a customer support team. You have access to phone support, live chat support, your support portal too. So 5 modes of communication and 5 modes of support there too, to support you through that and to ensure that you are always have that network available to you as and when you need it. Again, conscious of times there, James. Appreciate we've got a lot more questions and probably will have a lot more as well, I'm sure, following this too, which we'll be happy to pick up. And probably a good point for me to go on to the next slide as we do look to wrap up today's session is, if you would like to book in some time, use the QR code here, book in some time for yourself in your own school. And I'm sure there's a lot of questions that you might have, a lot of insights shared today, some amazing points earlier today from the discussion that we had. So definitely worth the conversation and worth looking at further if you are exploring and if you are open to that conversation. Do use that QR code to book in some time with us, and we'll be happy to support. Like I said, again, appreciate there's been a lot of change in the area, and as schools are now all a full checkbook status, to maintain schools, that is, having that opportunity to now explore different options. We understand the renewals are coming up for legacy systems that would typically tie you down to another 3 years, meaning in 2029, being with a legacy system as well might put you in a position where you might not be as comfortable. So this is why we time this conversation now, to make sure that we're in place. We've given you the time. We offer the support to make sure you have what you need as Birmingham, with now that ability to make those decisions, make those changes to move your school into a much more advanced way of doing things, and at the same time having an easy to use platform, because that is typically the hurdle that we find with previous FMS users. So if we can support you through that hurdle, which with Access we hopefully have shared how we can do that, and make it a lot more of an easier discussion to have, as well as, like we mentioned today, the integration with budgets. A lot of you already using budgets, or now starting to use budgets, or learning to use budgets. I appreciate everyone's at a different stage, and then starting to see the further addition there into finance, and bringing you on further to the Access family, and seeing the integration between the two as well, as we've covered in today's meeting. So I look forward to following up with a lot of you in the coming days, weeks, and months, and we'll be making sure to offer you as much time as possible. But with that being said, I appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone who attended today. Thank you to our amazing guest speakers. Maria Sylvia, again, thank you very much. Clare Skinner as well. And James, yourself as well. You've been really helpful as always, giving the audience your insights, and appreciate all of your support too.